Hi guys, it's Eerie, and I'm bringing you a new video. Ocarina of Time is overrated. You can apologize to me later, Alex. Okay, so I'm not here to disagree and argue with Mr. Alpha Kirby SSB, but I'm just here to point out some shortcomings in the post and my own opinions. So, let's get right into it, start reading it. Ocarina of Time came out in late 1998. True, you're right. On the N64. Another good point, man. And was revolutionary at the time. It brought Zelda to 3D, better graphics, as well as more in-depth puzzles. Does being revolutionary necessarily make a good game? Like a normal human being, you should have said no. See, that's not true. Because why do people like Mario 64 so much? Because it was revolutionary. Now, I don't like Ocarina of Time because it was the first 3D Zelda game. But I don't think you should be saying that you're not a normal human being if you think that because it was revolutionary is a good game. Now, there are examples like Death Stranding, I think, was like a revolutionary game that got pretty bad reviews by a lot of people because it was more of a movie than a game, UPS Simulator. No Man's Sky definitely is a revolutionary game that people were really excited for that got horrible reviews. But here's the thing, though, is that those were revolutionary and bad. Ocarina of Time is revolutionary and amazing. So just because a game is original or has better graphics does not make a good game at all. That is true, but it is a good game regardless of that. A good game is enjoyable and memorable. Now, I don't know about a lot of people, but I enjoyed The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And I have great memories of it. And now I know what you're thinking. Oh, you're just sitting here, S and the D of Majora's or Ocarina of Time. Well, that's not true. Because I also have favorable memories of the original Zelda, and A Link to the Past, and Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess. All original amazing games. So just because I think that Ocarina of Time is enjoyable and memorable does not mean I'm parading that it's not overrated. Because that's what this is about. If whether or not it's overrated or not. Okay? Well, Ocarina of Time is technically good, even great, which he just said it is great. The fact that people can rate it so highly is honestly scary. Now, when we're comparing it to other games in the series, we'll just say the 3D Zelda games, not including the ones on the 3DS and the DS, because those are more like 2.5D games. So we're just going Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild, and Skyward Sword. So if I had to rank them, I'll go top 3. I'll go Majora's Mask, which is my favorite of all of them, Ocarina of Time, which is my second favorite of all of them, and Wind Waker, which is my third favorite of all of them. Now, I'm not like saying that like they're definitively the best. They're the ones I like the most. Let me just continue on here. I have some good points. Google defines nostalgia as a sentimental longing or wistful affection. That's the definition of nostalgia. That's true. I have nostalgia for all the Zelda games. It is apparent that Ocarina of Time is thought to be one of the best Zelda games by the older fans, and for good reason. Yes, because it is not overrated. At the time, it was the best anyone had for a Zelda game. At the time, Breath of the Wild is the best. I wouldn't actually count Breath of the Wild as the best for a Zelda game. It's more of like its own kind of different thing, but I'll say it because it's a great game. It is the best we have for a Zelda game. In 18 years, it won't be. There will be better ones, hopefully. But that won't mean it's overrated because it was enjoyed by people and it was objectively a good game. But a few good memories can in reality severely fog your vision on a game, and such has happened with Ocarina of Time. That is untrue. Just because I have good memories of bad games, okay? For example, I like Superman 64. I had a lot of fun with that game. More so the multiplayer than the single player. Let's see what other objectively pretty... I guess DK64 is considered a bad game, but I can look past it because I like the music in it. I think the character is unique. I think the stage is unique. The problem is all the collectibles and how tedious it is, which Ocarina of Time obviously doesn't have any of those problems. So now you have to agree that Ocarina of Time is a fun game. I'm glad we're on the same basis there. It is a joyride start to finish. The music is great, which is true. Most of the dungeons were cool. I kind of disagree with, and the different races in the game were a good touch as well. This is where I have to disagree with you. Wind Waker is a classic example of a game done right. All of the dungeons from Wind Waker were very memorable and unique at that. I love Wind Waker. I love its music. I love the exploration aspect. I love its characters, the sound effects, the graphics, everything. My least favorite part of that game is the dungeons. I do not understand why you think they are unique. Okay? Because, in my opinion, the dungeons are all dark and linear and kind of boring. For example, okay, so I just pulled out all four of them. So I'll give you Forsaken Fortress, super unique dungeon. But I wouldn't even consider it a dungeon. It's not that cool. Dragon Roost Cavern is pretty much just your run-of-the-mill lava dungeon. I'd compare it to the Fire Temple, but it's not unique. I mean, the Fire Temple was unique because you had to save all the Gorons, and that's how you got the keys. And you had to keep making your way up, and when you get the hammer eventually. The only unique part about Dragon Roost Cavern I can think of is when you go outside. And other than that, you're just running through this lava-filled thing, waiting for the lava spouts, and trying to avoid those stupid what are they, Moldorms? Those little snake things. And if you fall in lava, you immediately have to void out and you go back to the beginning of the room. That's not unique. It's kind of tedious. Then we'll go on to the Forbidden Woods. I mean, it's another dark kind of linear dungeon until you get the boomerang. I mean, you just climb up until you get the boomerang. We get the boomerang. You finish climbing up. You break all the things, and you can go in the basement. There's not any cool puzzles in either of those dungeons that I can think of off the top of my head, except maybe throwing pots of water, which is all the puzzles in the Dragon Roost Cavern, besides the grappling hook, like having to go and maybe pulling down a switch. And then the Forbidden Woods, the only unique puzzle is, I guess, throwing the boomerang to knock something down and break the eyeball things on the doors. We'll go to Tower of the Gods. Tower of the Gods actually kind of a unique dungeon. You get the bow here, and the rising water. It's unique, but it's kind of tedious, and because you just have to wait for the water. It's just the same as Dragon Roost Cavern. You have to wait for the fire to blow up, and there's only like one instance in Ocarina of Time's fire dungeon that you kind of have to wait. That's when you push that block down and it shoots up, where you fight the first thing you got to blow up. That's really the only time you have to wait for the fire in that game. Otherwise, you can just kind of run through it. But the Tower of the Gods also has the mechanic where you have to play that one song with the Wind Waker that makes the dudes follow you. And although I have to give credit to the Wind Temple and the Earth Temple, that's really cool when you can actually control them. It's kind of like really lame on the statues and also very tedious. Now I'm not saying that these dungeons are terrible. I'd play them any day. They're all fun. But to say that like they are better than Ocarina of Time, like Deku Tree is a great, introduction to the game. The Dongos, I'd have to say that the first two dungeons are probably the weakest. The Ocarina of Time's Jabba Jabu's belly is super iconic. I mean, you're in a whale. There's nothing that cool. There's nothing that cool than going inside the whale. You get the fish to get in there, and then you have to carry Ruto around, and then she gets kidnapped. And the nice part about those kid dungeons is that they're kind of bland. I'm not saying they're bland, but they're not as unique as the other ones, but they're short. That's great about them. These dungeons, they take a bit, especially the Earth and the Wind Temple, even though they are the ones with the unique mechanics. Makar I'd just have to say the Earth Temple is better than the Wind Temple. I like the dead aesthetic. That's kind of cool. But Ocarina of Time did it first with the Shadow Temple. The Forest Temple is super unique. You have to go to the four different parts to get the ghosts. And then the boss fight. First off, the bosses in Wind Waker are definitely not as good as the bosses in Ocarina of Time. The Tower of the Gods dude is literally from Mario 64, where you have to hit his eyeballs. And then when you throw the thing in his mouth, that's just a Dongo. He's just a Dongo at that point, after you shoot his eyeballs out. Which is he's literally just, if the guy from Mario 64 in the Shifty Sands level, and the Dongos and Bongo Bongo had a baby. That would be that guy. The Forbidden Woods, you can one cycle that boss. You can one cycle that boss so easy. All you do is throw a boomerang and then go up and swipe him. Now, I'd say that's more akin to the beginning dungeons where you just shoot an arrow and you get him. It's kind of the same. boss really as the Brinade in Jabba Jabba's belly. You just have to hit the things, and then when he's weak, you go and hit him. At least in Jabba Jabba's belly, you have to deal with the jellyfish as well. Dragon Roost Cavern, I can't lie, is actually a unique boss fight. Wind Temple boss, I guess it's unique, but it still doesn't compare to like bosses like Phantom Ganon and Volvagia and Bongo Bongo and Twin Rova. Twin Rova is like the most legendary boss battle in any Zelda game ever. Okay, I think I'm done. They're just all like dark and linear, except for the Wind Temple and the Earth Temple. But as soon as like Makar or Medley get captured by the hands, it's just like curtains. It's just like the floor masters get them. It's just kind of lame. Let's go back to the Twit longer. I talked too long about that. The puzzles are also on par, which is not true. Ocarina of Time has some of the coolest puzzles in the whole game, such as the mirror shield puzzles are way more unique than having to hit different mirrors, having to hit all the suns and like line. I mean, the mirrors are even cooler in Ocarina of Time because you had to they're more memorable in Ocarina of Time, especially right before you get to the boss. You have to lower that boss thing. I remember that one pretty easily. A lot of people, and I'm gonna point this out because I know you said down here, also went without the whole thing saying LOL Water Temple. I disagree with that. The only problem Ocarina of Time had with the Water Temple was the UI. That got fixed in the 3D version, and if you play like modded like a ROM, you can use the D-pad to do that, to switch your boots. That level is the most unique one. I mean, it's different than the Terror of Gods having to change the water levels because you get to control when you do it. You go play Zelda's Lullaby at the different things, and then it changes the water level, and then you have to have the certain water level to get the key. And it's always like, you never have to like go out of your way to change the water level unless you forget something, if you know what you're doing. And it's just a good dungeon. The different like fire mazes in the fire temple with all the hammer stuff, and like having to play the Song of Time to move the blocks is really hype. Obviously, all of the forest temple is just godlike. There's good fights, there's good puzzles. Jabba Jabba's puzzles are good, having to know which hole to fall down, and then having to like hit the switch in the water and keep going through. And then the mini bosses are cool in that game. And I'm not just saying this. I mean, I'm 19 years old. Okay, this game's older than me. I didn't play Ocarina of Time until I was like 7. Okay, I mean, I had an N64. I have it on the N64, and I'm not like praising it because it's old and I'm old. I'm almost as old as it, and I'm older than you. I'm saying it's good because it's objectively fun, which you said, and it is technically a great game. If you argue that Ocarina, this made me laugh. If you argue that Ocarina of Time has overall better music than Wind Waker, you have no merit as a human being. Well, there goes my human being card, because Ocarina of Time has way more memorable music than Wind Waker. Okay, Zelda's Lullaby, I'm pretty sure, is in Wind Waker. It's the same song. Well, it's the same song. Who did it first? Who's unique? All right, that's the same song. Who did it first? Unique. Let's see. Song of Storms is one of the most unique songs in the entire series. Epona song made it all the way through to the other game. In Twilight it's in Twilight Princess. The Long Long Ranch theme is. The Lost Woods theme is super iconic. The Temple of Time theme is really good. The only songs I could name like most of the songs in that game. And say they're good. Gerudo's Valley. I mean, you can't listen to that song and say that any track in Wind Waker is better. I can only think of like 4 tracks from Wind Waker. The Great Sea, which is decent. Whatever. The Dragon Roost Island is a good song. That's a good song. The what is it? The opening theme. That's a good song. And the Pirates theme. Those are good songs. Okay? But I could just, first off, every Ocarina song is iconic. Everybody remembers the Ocarina songs. Okay? Nobody remembers the Wind Waker songs. I remember bum 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 to change, as opposed to full blown like tracks. yeah, I mean, when you listen to the Hyrule Market, Guru's Valley, the Lost Woods, Kokiri Forest, Kakariko Village, all of those songs transcend games. There's like one Wind Waker song in Phantom Hourglass, and that's the only song because the other ones are better and more iconic. Um, Now it's not because they're old; it's because they're good. If Wind Waker had like really good tracks, you'd see like the Great Bay or the like Windfall Island making it to another game or something. Kakariko Village was sure in another game. And if it's to save resources, I mean, Twilight Princess came out after Wind Waker. Where's the Wind Waker songs in that game? There aren't any. It's Ocarina of Time. Now, if that's just fan service, then that's just fan service. But they still made it through better games, through more games. Now, you said your favorite Zelda game is Skyward Sword, which I'm not gonna be like. I'm not saying I know you right. I mean, it's a good game. The problem is the controls are the only problem in that game. It's a good game story wise. It's a good game dungeon wise, puzzle wise. The only problem is the motion controls. If they made an HD remake of that game and had no motion controls, took out some of the tedious side quests like having to swim and get all the first the swimming controls in that game are just booty. Having to get all the musical note fish, it'd be a little better. I can't argue that game is great, but I can't argue that it's terrible. I would say it's probably one of the worst. And it's like what you said about the Pokemon when you said that Gen 1 Pokemon isn't bad, it's just the worst. Um, I think Skyward Sword's the worst. I still like the game though. It's fun. It's got a really good end game. The end game's great. You're aware of its flaws and you rank it fairly without bias, it would be pretty low, yeah. Controls are not good. The dungeons are too focused around these crappy controls. The thing is that the dungeons puzzles were really cool. The beetle's a cool item. The whip's a cool item. All that stuff's cool. It's just the controls, really. Yeah. I can look at Ocarina of Time without bias. Where do I think Ocarina of Time has downfalls? Ocarina of Time has a pretty spotty camera, but what N64 game didn't. Ocarina of Time doesn't have the greatest characters. They've got as I'll even compare it to Wind Waker. Wind Waker has way better characters, but that wasn't the focus then. For example, Saria, all the sages are really main characters. The Link, Ganon, but those are all like staples. I guess the really unique ones are like Anju, who made it to Majora's Mask, and I'm gonna bring up Majora's Mask, because Majora's Mask is like really good in my opinion. I don't think it's objectively the best Zelda game. I'd have to go out to Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker, but it is the nicest to me because it just feels like it's just such a surreal experience. I don't know, just the story and how grim it is. And that's another thing that really shines out in favor of Ocarina of Time was that the game was so good that they were able to make a whole nother game using its resources and have that game be equally, if not better, equally as good, if not better. Majora's Mask is a testament to how good Ocarina of Time was. You can't take a game like Bad Rats, a horrible game on Steam, use the same assets and make a good game because it's a gross game. There's nothing good about it. If you like Bad Rats, I'm sorry. So overall, people need to look past Ocarina of Time's iconic aura. I'm looking past its iconic aura and saying how objectively good a game it is. It has really cool items. Most of those items are also in Wind Waker. The only I can think of is the grappling hook isn't in Ocarina of Time. Wind Waker doesn't have things like Deku Sticks and Deku Nuts. They also don't have the slingshot because you get the bow. But also, another thing is being able to turn out, like, being able to go from an adult to a child and adult to child, adult to child is like two different games in one. It's crazy how different the entire world can change just based on clicking the A button next to a pedestal. And it's just good. That's good game design. Is you can go back to, you think you explored all of Goron City as a kid. You go back, you find out it's barren, and then you gotta rescue all the Gorons, and you find a Goron with your same name, and he gives you access to somewhere that you were able to go to as a kid, but now you can actually explore it because you have the tunic to be able to go. I think that's great game design. I can't think of a single place in Wind Waker that does something like that, unless you count like Windfall after you get the second orb and you have to go back and you have to fight the giant thing, but nothing changes on the island. It's just outside. Overall, people need to look past Iconic Aura, and Turbo is a fine game that has its good parts and its bad parts. That being the camera, the item UI. But if we're going to talk about, tedious things, I don't agree with sailing. I think it's cool and relaxing. But if I'm really sitting down to try and play a Zelda game, I don't want to have to sail. And you don't, until you beat the Tower of the Gods, you don't have teleportation. In Ocarina of Time, though, you can teleport as soon as you get to a dungeon, you can teleport to it. And you pretty much should just go wherever you want in the world. There's more things to collect. The Skulltulas, they're not tedious and lame to collect. They're actually cool parts of the game. There's more dungeons to explore. That's something I don't like about Majora's Mask, actually, is that there's only 4 dungeons. But the thing with that game is that I think that what shines in that game is all the side quests you can do, the Bomber's Notebook and that stuff. So I'm just gonna end it on the last sentence there. Therefore, by definition, Ocarina of Time is overrated. By definition, every game's overrated. Because if it's a good game and you like it because it was a good game from your past, it still stacks up to the old ones. Sure, the graphics aren't as good, but if you want an argument about the graphics, go play the 3D remake. That game's pretty gorgeous and fixes all the issues everybody had with the original. That being the camera, the water temple. I gotta give credit to Wind Waker if you play the HD remake. My biggest complaint with that game is I'd say my biggest complaint is the dungeons and the lack therefore of. But the second, I'd say the Great Sea having to change the swift sail in that game really helps it out. But I just want to know people's opinions on these games. Do I think Ocarina of Time is overrated? No, it is one of my favorite games of all time. And if you were to say because it's old and good and there's better games, I like Super Mario Sunshine more than I like Galaxy and Odyssey. I like its mechanics better. I like its world better. I like its levels better. I like its missions better. Just because it's older, it might have a worse camera and worse graphics doesn't mean it's an old game. But that's just my opinion. It was a long one. Hope you listened to the whole thing. I'm not saying your opinion's wrong. I'm just saying I disagree with you. With that being said, I hope you have a safe night.